The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick of FirearmMentor, your host. We're going to talk about things that are going on in October. However, before we do so, last night I ran an active shooter response drill. And two of the things that I did in the drill were creative. When I got there, I picked the person with the biggest purse, quietly went up to her and gave her a rubber knife and said, when I give the keyword, and I had a keyword, she would go on a, quote, fake stabbing spree. And she did, and people reacted well because they were trained well. However, the lesson there was it's not always a gun. And you're going to hear in the second half of the show about how evil does not reside in the chamber of a gun or the edge of a blade. It resides in the hearts of people. The other training evolution I did was I pretended to, this was a religious institution, and I pretended to be a congregant. And when the active shooter happened, I fell. I tripped and I fell. Obviously, I didn't really trip and fall. It was fake. And people stepped over me to get out. Nobody helped me up. I couldn't believe it. Thanks a lot, guys. And I say that to be sarcastically funny. When we debriefed after that, somebody asked me, well, is it our responsibility to help people who have fallen, who are unconscious? And my answer to that was, you have to be able to sleep at night. You need to do what you feel is right. Now, this is a religious institution. There's going to be children there. There's going to be the elderly. The average age, I think 40% of the congregation was over the age of 60. So there's going to be people there who have ambulatory issues, possible canes, wheelchairs, walkers, maybe even someone sprained their ankle and has a limp and doesn't have an implement to help them. Those are the people that may need help. They may need direction. They may need assistance. Another person said, well, what happens if we're evacuating and I come across a person and they're unconscious? And unfortunately, that's when you don't really have, as a regular person, the capability, the knowledge, the skill set to work on them, especially during gunfire. When I worked for the Glencoe Public Safety Department, we were involved in NIPUS, which is a regional SWAT team with one officer from here, one officer from there, and our department supplied the leadership for the TEMS unit. TEMS stands for Tactical EMS, and these are the police officers and paramedics, same person, two certifications, who go in under gunfire to help the police officers out, to treat victims, all while the bullets are flying. This is very, very unnerving, and these are medical professionals. Those are the people that could help a downed person during an active shooter response. It's not up to you to lift a 200-plus pound person and carry them out on your back, but if you can help someone, give them your hand, comfort them in safety, please go ahead and do so. With that said, let's jump to next month, October. A couple things are happening in October, and the first thing I want to talk about is that there is a public notice out from the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, that Homeland Security and Public Safety Bureaus are announcing a nationwide test of the Emergency Alert System and Wireless Emergency Alerts, which is abbreviated to WEA, on October 4th. So there will be a nationwide test of the Emergency Alert System, the Wireless Emergency Alert System, on October 4th. At about 2:18 p.m. Eastern Time, the National Alert Classification of an Alert message will be sent to the entire United States and its territories. People who have mobile device service from a CMS provider that participates in the Wireless Emergency Alert, so basically any of the major cellular carriers in their areas, will receive the test message, and it'll say something like, "This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed." So if you get that at 2:20 Eastern Time, or we are in Illinois, 1:20 p.m. Illinois time, don't be freaked out. The test is going to be disseminated in English and Spanish along with a common alerting protocol message, which just means a canned message, from the nationwide test of the emergency alert system code. The test will occur from, in Illinois, 1:20 to 1:50 p.m., and that just allows time for all the messages to get out. I've received some of these messages before as a test. It's a decent program, and it will alert our citizens of any nationwide problem. This was not really in effect during September 11th, but I imagine a tragic event such as September 11th would trigger such a message. Switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about cyber disaster preparedness. As people, a lot of times we don't have our information or data backed up, and it's going to be difficult to recover a digital life if a giant monster attacks your city or any other disaster. Obviously, a giant monster is not going to attack your city, but there could be earthquake, flooding, tornadoes, weather stuff, in the winter, snowstorms, and the aftermath of a disaster is disruptive enough without having to worry about your phone, your email, your critical files, financial accounts, online lifestyle, and all that good stuff. So, to prepare for a giant monster attack, and I say this to be funny because it's lighthearted, but the information is serious. You're going to need a cyber first aid kit. And you can check out a guide from FEMA that talks about recording your digital assets. I've talked about this on other shows. It's called the Emergency Financial First Aid Kit, or EFFAK. And it's a printout, or I would print it out because we're talking about interrupting your digital life. So you actually have a physical copy of it. I do. I have had it for years and years and years. And it will contain things like identifying documents with insurance numbers, medical records, checklists of the documents you want to back up, birth certificates, marriage certificate, divorce decree, all these important documents that are in your life that you may need to provide moving forward after a disaster. So it's best to perform an account checkup on your primary email and cloud storage accounts, and each one should have a backup email address, at least one phone number that can receive text messages, which means not a landline. I do know who has a landline these days, me, and there's only one person who calls on it, and that's my in-laws. Actually, there's more than one person. The only person I know who calls on it are my in-laws. I also get a ton of sales calls, which I don't even answer. You're going to want to have a trusted delegate if your account provider offers this feature. I know that Facebook does, and answers to security questions. You're going to want to obtain securely stored recovery codes and keys, including QR codes, for your primary email and cloud accounts. Load at least one credit card or debit card into a mobile wallet app, like if you have an iPhone, Apple Pay, or GPay, in case you lose your cards or access to cash. And contact your cell phone provider to see what information they'll need to verify our identity if the phone is lost. If you're there, you can set a PIN number and ensure that you have an emergency phone charging options. I have an external battery, and actually there's a product. If you send me a message at FirearmMentorCard.com, it looks like, for lack of a better term, a condom package. And inside the condom package is a 3-hour battery. It's extremely lightweight. You can throw it in your purse. I have one in my car in case my cord doesn't work. And it has attachments for both iPhone and Android. You plug it in, you get 3 hours of a charge, and at least that will get you out of an emergency type thing. You can also subscribe to free emergency alert services from the FEMA app or FEMA text updates. You're going to want to make sure your local law enforcement public safety dispatch center has your cell phone information, because most of us, look, let's face it, we're all on cell phones these days. As far as protection after an attack, it's always a good activity to practice password hygiene, multi-factor authentication, and up-to-date apps and devices. So good password hygiene is not having a password that says password, not having a password that's your name. I like to use a different language sometimes. Sometimes I use the English language. Multi-factor authentication is when you log onto a website and they want to make sure it's you, so they send you a text message with a 4 or a 6-digit code that you can enter in to verify your identity. Always protect your information from unauthorized access, storing backups using secure cloud services, and or on a password-protected and encrypted external hard drive. You keep those things in a watertight container, a fire safe, a bank safe deposit box. And the other thing is teach your family how to recognize scams. For example, when you're talking about scams, I've gotten an email multiple times on my professional email, the Marcus at FirearmMentor.com, from an organization called Portal 360. And Portal 360, from what I can surmise, is a collection service. I have received messages from Portal 360, and it really looked like a scam. It said, set up your online account. We're sending you information. Log on here. And in my last email, I got the message saying, this message is being sent in regards to your account with Genovations Region PLLC. Universal Account Servicing LLC is a third-party billing service provider for your account. So their website is actually uPortal 360. I called Genovations Region PLLC. I'm in Chicago. They're in Minneapolis, and they do in-person medical treatments. And I said, I've never even been to Minneapolis. And I talked to a very nice gentleman there. I said, can you look me up? I want to see if maybe I owe you something. Maybe I ordered something that I'm not aware of, and it came from you. And what he told me was the only automated messages they send out are for appointment reminders. This is billing. So I determined it is a scam. When in doubt, delete. When in doubt, do not open. If you're not sure if it's a scam or not, don't open it. Let them contact you again. If it's really that important, they will contact you. Another thing is you're going to want to consider using credit freezes and fraud alerts in case of a cyber criminal who tries to take advantage of the chaos of a disaster. I know following the pandemic, following 9/11, there's these phone calls, we're collecting money for charity. I have a credit freeze, so I can't apply for a credit card, I can't apply for a car loan unless I unfreeze my credit. I do that with each of the credit bureaus, and actually when I had to buy a car recently, a little less than a year ago, I didn't even realize I had it in because it set it and forget it. Well, they came back and they're like, do you have a credit freeze? And I was like, oh yeah. So I called them, I unfroze it, they ran the credit, I got the car loan, yada, yada, yada. Following a disaster, once the monster is defeated and gone back into the ocean and you don't have a kaiju anymore, and the danger is past, some ways to help you get back your digital life include putting your phone on low power or battery saver in case you don't have electricity or the electricity remains unstable. Again, I mentioned these external batteries, not a bad idea to have. And if you've lost access to your phone, get a replacement as soon as you can. Contact your service provider. My son was in another country, and he was at the beach, and he had his phone in his hand. He's on the shore. And one of his compatriots, because they're teenagers, tackled him. And his phone went into the Jordan River and was swept away. And he's in another country. They didn't really have an Apple store, so we were fortunate. We found someone who was actually visiting Israel. We bought a phone here. They brought it over on the plane. A couple days later, it just was lucky. And my son was without a phone for a few days. Not a big deal. Was not a real, emergency. So once you have access to your phone number and texting, use backup methods that you've already designated, hint, hint, to regain access to your email and cloud accounts. Install your backed up data, and they can help you do this at an Apple store or wherever you happen to be buying a phone, Best Buy, they can help you do that. Monitor accounts and credit reports for suspicious activity, and understand to recognize and report disaster fraud. Disaster fraud are charity scams that take advantage of people who want to help. They want to help disaster victims. Scammers could pose as government officials, contractors, and insurance agents. Be suspicious of strangers offering unsolicited help. I did get a phone call one time from somebody who told me that I owed back taxes, which I didn't. I'm totally on top of that stuff. And he said, the police are on their way to pick you up. Well, the phone number, they had cloned the Illinois State Police phone number. So what I did was I played along. Oh, okay, and go to Walmart and get me a gift card to whatever it was, and send it in here, give me the number, and then they won't arrest you. And I said, oh, good, the police are on their way here? No problem. I'd love to talk with them. Because I worked for 35 years in law enforcement and know this is a scam and you're not the police. How did I know that? Very, very thick foreign accent, not able to speak in clear English, and the police don't come and arrest you if you have a bill that's overpaid. Just think twice about giving anyone money or personal information, and don't make any decisions under pressure. If you can sleep on a big decision, sleep on the big decision. And that is my advice to you. In a moment, we're going to be talking with Thomas Krall from Alpha Concepts. His website is alphaconceptswithak.com, and we are going to be talking about another event that's going to happen in October. Stay tuned. Today I have Thomas Krall from Alpha Concepts with a K, who is a fellow firearms instructor. Thomas and I have collaborated on a number of classes and are in a number of groups together, and I have nothing but the highest respect for him. Thomas, thank you for taking a few moments to talk to our listeners today.
My pleasure. That was an amazing intro. Thank you for buttering me up.
Can you tell the audience about yourself, your background in firearms, and about your company?
I've been shooting most of my life, started getting firearm training in my mid-20s, realized how little I actually knew, and I just have been a lifelong learner ever since. I've been a firearm instructor for the last 10 years, one of the first concealed carry instructors in the state of Illinois. I've been doing it since the very, very beginning. My company, Alpha Concepts, we are offering firearm training all the way from the beginner up to the advanced. Of course, handgun, but we're doing rifle, shotgun. We're doing medical safety training as well. I think that's very important. I didn't realize back in the day, just how important it was until I had an epiphany. As a firearm instructor, I have the lives of students. Their lives are in my hands. I am responsible for that. And I started seeking medical training, and so that, God forbid, there's ever an accident on the range, I can deal with that until the professionals get there. So I've started doing that. And basic safety training as far as, for people who might not be into firearms or to have a less lethal backup plan. I'm also a certified pepper spray instructor as well. So try to run full circle. I really, obviously heavy on the firearms, of course, but full circle safety training. Currently what we're offering, been doing it for 10 years, and I absolutely love it.
This is kind of off script. Did you have to get sprayed?
So I have been sprayed, and it is definitely the opposite of enjoyable. I can think of one less pleasant experience, and that was a third-degree burns that I experienced in a completely unrelated incident. Neither of those would I ever like to go through again. I tell students all the time, my insurance won't let me spray students, which is good for them, because I tell them all the time, if you are going to carry pepper spray for self-defense, you absolutely should get sprayed and feel it, understand how you're going to react to it. Because if you spray somebody in that high-stress situation, if you haven't practiced, got some tester spray practice, you might get some of it on you. And imagine if you spray someone and now you're in a wrestling match, you are definitely going to get some of it on you. And you don't want that to be your first experience. And nobody ever wants to hear that. I'm quite sure very few people take me up on that advice. But for anyone listening that carries pepper spray, the God's honest truth is you really need to know how you're going to react to that stuff, because if you ever need to use it, it's possible. It's a strong possibility that you're going to get some of it on you.
I'm also a pepper spray instructor from way back in the 1990s. And when I took my class, they videoed it. I brought it home. I was probably 18 or 19 at the time, just starting out in law enforcement. I showed it to my mother and my sister, and when I got sprayed, they applauded. I couldn't believe it.
So, who applauded? Your mother and sister?
Yeah. Well, they, come on. I have a sense of humor, and where do you think I got it from?
Sure.
I will also share another story, and this is kind of important for the people that do carry pepper spray. it burns. It feels like your face is on a stove burner. It is a horrendous experience. I mean, it's not going to kill you. I know a police officer who responded to a house party, and he had when I say a canister of pepper spray, what I mean is it's a fire extinguisher size canister.
Sure, like one of the riot sprays.
Yes, he had that. He goes in the backyard. It was a house party. There was drugs and alcohol and underage. And all these people start rolling out of the back of the house to run from the cops. And he lit them up with pepper spray, subdued the people, brought them to the lockup. Now, this is important. If somebody ever is decontaminating with pepper spray, make sure you lean your head back. This poor guy leaned his head forward, and all of the oily pepper spray went into his nether regions.
Yeah.
And started screaming. And all of his family members in the lockup could hear him, and they were laughing at him. But that's not a pleasant experience. I'm really glad you brought that up. Can you talk about some work in security?
So I am a licensed security officer. I've been doing that for 5 years. Really, I was doing it full time in the mix of the firearm training stuff. I am doing it part time now. I got into the security training as a means to expand the firearm training that we were offering, and I'm still doing that. I'm working with some security companies. I'm pending right now, waiting since February for the state to approve my security instructor training. I do work security. I do try to bring professionalism to that industry. I think that there's a lot of people in the industry who want to be professional. And then there's some people who are just in it because they don't want to do anything else. And it's an easy job at the entry-level positions. I think we'll be offering security training in the very, very near future once the state finally does approve my instructor credential. Like I said, I've been doing that for 5 years. I've seen quite a bit. They bounced me around. The company I'm with is a medium-sized company, so I was able to advance rather quickly, which was nice. And they bounced me around quite a bit to different critical types of posts where they need someone that knows how to communicate, de-escalate, that sort of thing. I've got to see quite a bit. I've got to see a broad brush view at the industry.
I've always called that being a security officer when you have to interact with people, and a security guard guards property. That's just my own personal definition.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people have differences of opinion. I personally use the terms interchangeably. I once was talking to a security officer at a hospital, and I happened to say the word guard, and he took great offense. But I understand what you're saying. There's probably a difference between an officer and a guard per se, but for me personally, I just use the terms interchangeably.
Just like some people, and I'm teasing you right now, some people use the term magazine and clip interchangeably too.
They do, and you know what? I always bring that up in my basic pistol and my concealed carry classes. We talk about that, and I tell people you can call it whatever the heck you please. Right. I've got more important things to worry about, but I do explain to them that they are the same, they are different, and yes, there's definitely differences between magazines and clips, but yeah, some people just get bent out of shape over the weirdest things.
Yeah, I tell my classes, look, if you call a magazine a clip, this is what's going to happen.
Yes.
I'm going to stick my tongue out at you. And invariably, and I make it a joke. But then when someone does call it a clip, I actually have customized binder clips that I hand out. And I'm like, no. And I wait for someone to say, call it a clip. I go, no, this is a clip. And then everyone gets a FirearmMentor binder clip. Because, again, like you, I kind of am lighthearted. I use a little bit of humor to drive points home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in Illinois, it's a long class, right? If you're doing the concealed carry, if you're doing basic pistol, just generally speaking, it's going to be 6 to 8 hours, maybe 9 hours. And if you're doing concealed carry, it's 16 hours. You've got to break it up with humor, or people are going to turn their brains off. They're not going to be able to absorb the knowledge. And then what are you doing? You're just sitting there talking to the wall at that point. Nobody's really learning. We're just checking boxes, and that's not the way I run things. So I think, like you, I use humor to just keep people engaged and so that they can learn as much as humanly possible, which is 16 hours. You could throw a lot of information at them. Not all of it's going to stick, but anything I can do to increase the retention, that's what I'm going to do.
You're right. The class is a long class, and it's sometimes difficult to maintain people's attention. I actually look at you, Thomas, as a safety educator, because there's other things that you do. Can you talk about how you're involved in the firearms community, like when you founded Gun Rights for Illinois and other type of online educational activities, including like your YouTube page also?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, everything is about educating. I mean, really, honestly, whether you come to a class or view a free video, I do webinars. I mean, it's really, honestly, just about education. That was the original basis of the Gun Rights for Illinois website and group. The website is now down. I turned over ownership a couple years ago. It was so overwhelming. But let me tell you exactly how and why it started. Originally, the intention was just to be an aggregate website and Facebook page to take all the information that you'd get a bit and a piece here and a bit and a piece there. And as you know, I pay attention to all of that stuff. I am in the weeds with the minutia. And so the goal was really just to take all those different sources where you get a bit and a piece and to put it into one source. However, as you know, I'm very vocal about some of the gun rights groups, and I'll leave that out of the conversation, but I felt as if a lot of them were not doing enough to support our rights, and I really got enraged one day, and that was like a spark that the Gun Rights for Illinois needs to be more than just information. We need to get active. And I built that group up to, I want to say, the page, and I'm just throwing numbers at you because I don't remember anymore. It's been a couple of years, but at the time, I want to say about 10,000 followers on the page and about 7,000 to 8,000 in the group. And I had some help. I did. It wasn't all by myself. I don't want to, insult the people that helped me, but, I really feel very strongly about people supporting the things that they believe in. Whatever that is that you believe in, you've got to be active. And so, I literally put my money where my mouth is and did everything that I could for a number of years. And I still do on the back end, but not on the forefront. I do as much as I can on the back end to educate and all of those great things. And also, let me also say this, cut through the hyperbole and the rhetoric that we see from both sides. And approach things from a factual point of view. And as you and I were discussing, or actually as you were discussing with someone else and I was lurking and watching, you had mentioned something about you're a data-driven guy and you want to see the data. And I'm very much the same. Like, let's tell things like it is. Let's not sugarcoat anything. The facts are facts. And one of my biggest pet peeves with the media in general is they like to tell you what to think. And I don't want anyone to tell me what to think. I just give me some facts. I can form my own opinion. And that's kind of the way that I operate with everything that I do, is just facts.
When we return, we'll continue the conversation with firearms instructor Thomas Krall from Alpha Concepts. Stay tuned. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.